I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Respectable panel of judges and the committee of Nsdc 2026, and not to forget everyone watching this video, a very good day. Before we talk about budgets, logistics, or engineering, let's look at the human face of this motion. The debate before us today is not just a theoretical policy clash, it is a question of survival for millions of people across the Indonesian archipelago. As the affirmative, our stance is uncompromisingly clear. When we choose to prevent, we do not have to evacuate. And today I will stand to prove why the state must absolutely prioritize disaster mitigation over relocation. As a high school student living here in Indonesia, I see a very different reality on the ground. From my own experiences, just looking at how we handle seasonal floods or environmental issues in our neighborhoods, I realized that disasters aren't just about the rain or the weather. It's about how ready our surroundings are. When our infrastructure isn't prepared, even a normal rainy season can turn into a scary evacuation crisis, where schools are closed and roads are blocked and lives are put on hold. So today, we need to ask a practical question. As a developing nation, should the state spend its limited resources running away from nature, or should we focus on fixing the places where people already live? We believe that mitigation, fixing, and strengthening our homes is the only right answer. To prove this, I will break down my case into 3 clear arguments. My first argument is about the economic and structural reality of Indonesian lives, and why relocation causes a secondary man-made crisis. Because prioritizing mitigation is the only way to protect people's lives and their livelihoods, because forcing people to relocate causes an economic shock that destroys their survival. So let's look at who actually lives in these high-risk areas in Indonesia. For example, there are traditional fishermen along the coast, or farmers on mountain slopes, or low-income workers in a crowded city corner. They live there because that is where their livelihood is. A fisherman needs to be near the sea to catch fish, and a farmer needs the fertile volcanic soil to grow crops. So when the government forces them to relocate to a new inland housing complex, they aren't just moving the people, they are also cutting off their sources of income. You cannot just drop a coastal fisherman into concrete apartments far away from the ocean and expect them to survive. On top of that, Indonesia has a huge issue with land ownership gridlocks. Finding mass amounts of empty, undisputed land for relocation always triggers land disputes with the people who already live in that said new area. So relocation really destroys both their economy and the social peace. Now, mitigation, however, uses state resources to make their current homes safe, so they can just keep working and feeding their families. We see this happening in real life all the time in Indonesia. Whether the government tries to relocate a village after a disaster, a lot of the family will end up quietly moving back into the danger zones after a couple of months. Why? Because the new relocation sites they're often isolated, and they don't have traditional markets, jobs, or affordable public transport. To these families, the future risk of natural disaster is something that they can gamble on, but on the absolute certainty of having no food on the table today is something that they cannot survive on. Therefore, because the state's job is to protect both our physical safety and our daily economic survival, mitigation is the only choice that prevents people from becoming poor and displaced in their own country. Now, my second argument is about how we address the core clash about the nature of natural disasters, and how do we handle unpredictability. We do not need a crystal ball to predict the exact day when an earthquake or a flash flood will strike to successfully protect our people. Building resilient infrastructure protects us automatically. The opposition thinks that because we cannot control tectonic plates or heavy rains, we should just give up and move our people away. But they are confusing the natural event with the disaster. An earthquake happening in an empty open desert will not hurt anyone. It only becomes a disaster when it hits a city with poorly built structures and it collapses on people. Therefore, the unpredictability of nature is not an excuse to run away. It is a mandate to build better. Because we handle unpredictability through a passive, constant engineering, and by creating an environmental that is designed to absorb shocks, the infrastructure stands ready 24/7. It does not matter when natural decides to strike. The protection is already active on the ground, removing the need for sudden panic and mass evacuation orders. Now let's look at how this works against Indonesia's most unpredictable forces. We cannot predict when a fault line in Sumatra or Java will shift, but under a mitigation framework, if the government strictly enforces seismic building codes or reinforces our public schools and hospitals, what happens? And when the ground shakes, the building flex and stays standing. The same also goes for like hydrometeorological threats like volcanic mud flows or flash floods. If we build proper check dams, or what we call in Indonesia sabu dams, along the volcanic rivers, the infrastructure automatically catches the debris and manages the water flow. The citizens don't need to predict the weather. The built-in prevention did the heavy lifting for all of them. Thus, because the dynamic mitigation provides a continuous automatic shield that eliminates the element of surprise, it is logically superior to trying to relocate millions of people away from every geographical risk zone. Now, my third and final argument is about why mitigation is a faster and more responsible use of state money. Relocation is a massive financial drain that takes decades to execute, leaving citizens unprotected in the meantime, while mitigation offers an immediately scalable safety because as a developing country, Indonesia's budget is pretty tight, and relocating is just an incredible expensive project. The government has to build massive plots of land, build thousands of houses, and lay down new roads, and not to forget install electricity and water grids from scratch. Because it costs so much and involves endless bureaucracy, relocation projects takes years, sometimes even a decade to complete. But natural hazards does not wait for the government to finish its paperwork. While the state is busy spending years trying to fund and build a new relocation city, the citizens are left completely vulnerable in the old zone. Mitigation is, we can say it's pretty modular, immediate, and cost-effective. You can upgrade a drainage network, install automatically early warning sirens, or maybe plant a coastal mangrove greenbelt in a matter of months. It protects more people much faster with the fraction of the budget. Now think about the sinking coastal area or the flood-prone neighborhoods. If the state tries to relocate everyone, the budget breaks and people are left stranded for years. But when the government focuses on mitigation, like distributing small grants for people to elevate their houses, or widening the rivers, or maybe setting up clear elevated evacuation shelters right inside the community where thousands of families are secured before the next rainy season even starts. Therefore, from a perspective of resource allocation, prioritizing mitigation also allows the state to save lives. Now, rather than chasing the expensive and slow illusion of like mass relocation, the panels of judges, let's wrap this up. For countries like Indonesia, relocating is a defeatist policy. It's like the government saying we cannot find a way to make your neighborhood safe, so you have to leave your history behind and just run. It costs a huge amount of money and it starts land conflicts and tears our cultures apart. We shouldn't accept that. We believe in an Indonesia that stands its ground. We believe in engineering smart solutions instead of just shouting evacuation orders. By investing in making our existing cities and villages stronger through our three arguments today, protecting livelihoods, neutralizing unpredictability, and using state funds efficiently, we save lives permanently. When we choose to prevent, we don't have to live in fear. For all those reasons, I am proud to propose, thank you.